Shadowrun Dragonfall is the second game entry by Harebrained Schemes in the Shadowrun universe, but it doesn't continue where Dead Man's Switch left off. Instead, it goes off in this totally different locale centered around Berlin. While there are minor changes to the systems put in place from the previous title, it is for the most part just like the first attempt from Harebrained Schemes. While it does offer some modding support, most of the mods and the new campaigns are updated in the last title made in the series, Shadowrun Hong Kong. So when reviewing this, it really comes down to the merit of the content created from the base storyline presented, and that's what I'll discuss today in this review. But before we dive too far down this rabbit hole, remember to like and subscribe for more content. Let's go ahead and dive in. You know, the interesting thing about Shadowrun is this futuristic view of tech and magic. It really is a great premise, and with the Shadowrun universe, it has a ton of backed lore potential. While some of the ideas presented in this world are vastly different from where we are in technology today, there are moments where you'll catch where we've exceeded some of the notions presented. I always view this as an alternate reality where tech and dragons exist, and it's divergent from our own. For their second attempt, Harebrained Schemes decided to focus the storyline around more of the fantasy elements, with the name spoiling itself before you even begin to play, aptly named Dragonfall. Now, I think it's important to note that this was originally downloadable content for Returns, but then expanded and placed in a full game title, of which we have today. Like Returns, they wanted the community to have a robust mod making experience. As for the storyline in Dragonfall, I find it good if it's a little cliche, where most of the interesting tidbits really come down to the handcrafted companions you encounter and can bring along on the missions. My personal favorite is Glory, who is like your chromed out Wolverine with claws that also has a knack for healing others. What makes her story so interesting is really how it plays out, where when first meeting her, she's near emotionless, kind of like a Spock from Star Trek, and slowly you can develop a relationship with her by pulling back that tough exterior to see who she really is and why she is there. There's also a variety of side quests that can be completed. Now, I'm not going to lie, sometimes even getting to these side quests require a tedious amount of starting conversations and coming back to the same NPCs again later to unlock them, but like any side quests, sometimes there's some really good ones, and then there are those side quests that question morality, which also I found to be a great touch, as it allowed you to roleplay your characters as you see fit. Do you take the job for money, or do you do a hard pass? As far as the combat is concerned, it's just like the first one, that XCOM style of using cover, which is fine by me, especially when you start understanding the nuances of combat with the use of stuns to making enemy AI drop cover or combo break their armor. The biggest gripe I have in this system is the way that it navigates between free reign exploring and then to combat setup. You can't control how your party enters a room when in free reign, and many times my set pieces walking into that room weren't the way that I wanted them to be. But the fights aren't overly tough, and understanding choke points and the use of Overwatch can really help this out a lot. When you combine that the shops sell ample supplies and gears to upgrade your main character or companions, it really makes the whole thing a lot smoother in the transition over into the end of the campaign. There is a particular hint that I do find useful in this playthrough. Don't spend your skill points everywhere in designing your character. It's useful just to go ahead and focus on one or two build types, and it's also important to be aware that essence loss is really major for casters if they want to get into cybernetics, which in the end I just say don't even do it because it's not worth it, as it diminishes and punishes you so severely on casting that it makes little sense if you did end up getting a little bit better with your aim. The campaign is short, even though it's longer than the first game. Even in this one, you won't be able to really maximize your abilities if you just go ahead and splash it everywhere. So in the end, I really recommend just to choose one or two different types. Also, while speaking about upgrades, it's a good rule of thumb to finish out all the companion storylines, as when you do, you'll get an upgrade to that character that you can carry with them throughout the rest of the campaign. For example, like Glory gets the ability to heal the last amount of damage as a natural ability, and it does have a cooldown, I think 1 or 2 or 3 rounds, but it's an extra heal and it's very practical. Finally, there is a fair bit of sleuthing that goes on in the gameplay. discovering door codes or little hints that describe what you might encounter next. There are also usually multiple different approaches that can be done in each encounter, so it's really important to take use of your team and their abilities. There's a flexibility in the approach, even down to the dialogue with the hostile NPCs, which allows for a ton of replay value with all the different builds and the different ideas that you might stumble across. Music and sound. I really enjoy futuristic synthwave. I mean, one of the artists that I have on my playlist is Timecop. So listening to the background of Shadowrun is actually pretty enjoyable for me, but it isn't groundbreaking. I found that some of the best loops were just like the opening loading scene or a transition in and out of the city. While I think it makes for a great background filler, there is nothing here that really speaks volumes to me. Now, as far as the combat sounds, I think everything is done well, be it the poppy, sluggish noise of the shotgun or the sound of a blade slicing through cybernetics and flesh, and then you can combine it with the distinct noise of someone getting hit with a flashbang and going into a stun lock. I mean, I really did enjoy the sounds. As far as my final thoughts on Shadowrun Dragonfall, I think it's a very competent turn-based RPG. The campaign is slightly shorter than some, but that's also a nice, refreshing break. Not everything needs to be 100 plus hours to complete. As I mentioned before, while the project of Shadowrun moved over to Hong Kong, there are a few conversion mods that are best played on this version of the Harebrained Schemes games, which I think adds value to the game. Now, overall, you can see that it is definitely a more polished attempt than their first product that they did with Shadowrun Returns, and since the trilogy is usually so cheap to get, especially because it runs on sale almost all the time, I don't really see any reason why to pass up the chance to play this great CRPG. Well, that's it for me. I hope you liked it. Remember to like and subscribe for future content. I'll see you on the next one. Later.